Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Thompson, and I am the event director for IBTM World. But today I'm here to welcome you to IBTM Connect. Before we go any further, I'd just like to say on behalf of the IBTM team, we hope that everyone is staying safe and keeping well. And thank you for being with us today. In creating IBTM Connect, we have built a platform with the purpose to keeping our industry engaged and united. And we are doing that through the best possible and most relevant content available at this time. And so today we have Navid Moazzez, CEO of Navid Media, joining us to answer all of your burning virtual event questions. Navid is a high-performance business coach and virtual event strategist dedicated to helping his clients build, grow, and scale their online businesses. According to the Huffington Post and other online influencers, he's seen to be the world's leading expert when it comes to hosting virtual summits. So thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, and please join me in giving a warm welcome to Navid. Welcome, Navid.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure being on here and talking to your audience here today. So
It's great to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can get into some stuff. I know we have like a bunch of questions that came in. We are going to get into, in the beginning, I'll have a little intro for you as well here to give you a brief overview of how I view virtual events, some different types, and then we'll just get right into the question. We had some great ones submitted from the audience, and then we have also an open Q&A a little bit later here today. So yeah, if you guys are ready, I'll just dive right in.
Go for it. Enjoy.
Awesome. Yeah, so as you said here in the intro, I'm Navid Moazzez. I have done this for quite some time. Actually, you guys who are tuning in here, it's possibly not my regular audience I speak to, but I have a lot of experience since 2014 doing this in hundreds of different markets. We use virtual events primarily to grow massive email lists. We have, across myself and my clients, we have generated millions of email subscribers and tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And it works really, like doing virtual events and all this works in any type of market. And there's different types of virtual events as well in the way we do it. Like maybe if you're coming more from an offline, in-person event background, there's definitely some changes to keep in mind. So you're not just going to take what you're doing in person and bring it completely online. There's changes to be made there in terms of how you market it, in terms of how you design that experience. And typically you can do a free virtual event in the front end. Like when people sign up, you can do it as a big list build. So you build an email list from this. And then you can also sell, after someone signs up for this virtual event experience, you can also have an upgrade pass. And typically it's quite easy to get sponsors on board for this because you get a much bigger audience. There's also pretty easy to get speakers on board because they're getting, great exposure from this. Then there's also, a paid events you can do. You still want to market a paid virtual event with free content, because if you just send them to a sales page, similar to how you probably do with a in-person event, you can still get sales, right, if you have an audience and stuff like that. But it's much more effective if you might market something like that with, you can market it with free webinars or some kind of free content leading up to this, and then telling people why they should, sign up for this paid virtual event. And that's also, you can get sponsors on there. You might not have as many people sign up like as a free event, because then you will have more people, it's great when you have an audience ready to do that. If you already have a few thousand people maybe in your audience, then you can offer something like that to turn more of these people into buyers for that experience. And that's can be also very effective. But as I said, you need to market it a little differently than just an in-person conference, because in-person conferences, people start like a year in advance sometimes to market these events. But for virtual, you don't necessarily need to do that. It's like the attention span is shorter and everything online. So I just want to stress this here. It's a very different world, like to do something with virtual events and doing it in person. It's completely different. Although you might say, okay, we just bringing it online. That's usually like if you have maybe something online, you might do Zoom calls and stuff like that. But this is like, you want to design a customer journey for the people signing up here. That's kind of where I'm bringing my online marketing experience for the last 7 years. And that's what I want to bring to you here today. So if that's good, for a little intro here, how this can work, like there's different ways to do it. I'm sure we'll get into even more here in the questions, because there were some great ones submitted. So can't share slides here, but I'm gonna read the questions out for you. So look there here on my screen here. So let's get into the questions. So basically what we are gonna help you with is how to run successful and profitable virtual event. That's the promise for this session here. So here, I'm just going to read the first one here. So when adapting your event strategy from offline to online virtual events, what should event organizers start with? I mean, that's a very good question. That's kind of what I alluded to here in the beginning, because you're not just going to bring what you have done in person, offline to online. You need to think about it like the competition, for example. Online might be more stuff going on. So you need to position this event in a way so it stands out in your market. What type of speakers are you going to bring on? Or do they have kind of the right audience for you? Is it going to be, do you want to do a free virtual event, or do you want to do more of a paid one, right? I mean, there's different ways to do it. And a free one can actually lead to a lot of customers. A lot of people think, oh, why it's free event, but you can actually generate a lot of customers from this. Like, for example, what we have done, we use typically free events a lot because I build my email list up. So I build an email list of buyers by doing this. So, let's say I have, a few thousand people sign up. Let's say 6 to 10% of the people sign up. So I have a few thousand, might get 200, 300 customers for this event, right? Because they have a big email list, which can turn into buyers later and even repeat buyers. And then I have the people who are upgrading to more of a premium pass, and that premium pass can include some bonuses, some extra material and stuff. So it's kind of separating it from the free event. And you can also have it when you're doing the free event, can be for a limited time too. So can be for, let's say you have free sessions, can be for 24 hours available when it goes live, each session. So you have some urgency there for people to kind of check it out. That works extremely well to get people to upgrade, and also get we get sponsors on board, either promotional sponsors or paid sponsor. I know there's also a question there. I'm going to talk more about sponsors here in a minute, but now, especially in these times, it's easy. It's a lot easier actually to get the sponsors for virtual events, because they realize the power of, they need to be seen now, because they can't be on in-person conferences and stuff like that. Because the governments has shut everything down, right? That's kind of what happened here. So I think that's kind of where you need to start with. Like, when you think about this, like maybe you have already done in-person conferences. Maybe you can see, how can we bring this online and design a great experience for people, and just deciding kind of, is it going to be kind of more for a list build, like knowing your number one objective, why you're doing this in the first place. Like, is it to, turn more of your existing audience into customers? That might be another reason for it. Like if you want to do a paid event, right? And more of a workshop style kind of a summit, because you can get so many people. There's no limit to how many people you can get to sign up to a virtual event. That's the beauty. But for an in-person conference, you're not gonna, I mean, some big ones, they might have tens of thousands of people, right? But in most cases, maybe a big one would be considered 1,000 to a few thousand people. I mean, some people are lucky if they can get even a few hundred people. That's pretty big for an in-person. But online, you can get a lot more people, depending on the audience, to sign up and also turn into customers, which is amazing. There's no limit. You don't only need people in the UK or US anymore. You can have people from all over the world. So that's what to look at there. So this is another great question that came in. So what do you expect hybrid events look like in the next 6 to 12 months? And we haven't personally done exactly hybrid events, because I'm not coming from an in-person event background. But what I see in my industry that I think you guys can, possibly implement is there's a company called Creative Live who's doing really cool things. So they basically have an in-person audience. So let's say you're allowed to have 25 to 50 people in a room, then you can also have an online audience. So at the same time, you might have a little studio or wherever you guys are doing your events, right? And you film it. You can even you can live stream it, right? There's some technology today that you can actually live stream it and do really well with that. And then you can actually have an in-person audience. They can ask questions live and stuff. Then you can have an online audience at the same time, which is really cool. And Creative Live is a great company who's doing stuff like that. They're doing that they're doing courses on photography and video and online marketing. They're doing all kinds of stuff. They're quite broad in that sense, but they are doing a lot of cool things that you might want to look at if you want to actually have a more of a hybrid event experience. When it's allowed to do maybe smaller events and stuff, then you can do that, but still having a virtual event experience to get even more people to shop there. I mean, Creative Live, as an example, they have tens of thousands of people, because they're a pretty big company. They have tens of thousands of people show up to their, the different hybrid events, so to speak. So they have the in-person studio with some people there who engage, and then they have the online audience. They take questions from people live. It's really, really engaging to do that. All right, cool. Let's see here. Okay, this is good. I got from Hannah here. I just want to check. So can you give some advice on internal virtual events and activities to connect the attendees? For example, a virtual event, kickoff event for 80 to 100 persons. That's a great question as well. I mean, you can even looking at what Microsoft and some big corporations are doing. I mean, now they're not doing anything in person, so they're actually doing more. Some of their biggest events now, internal, they are virtual, and you can just use, for example, simple technology for doing something like that could be Zoom. If you just kind of do something, internal, you don't necessarily need a big sign-up process and stuff like that. You can have people register for a Zoom call, and you can bring on people like that on a Zoom, and then you can share whatever you want there. You can do a great kickoff. You can do even some kind of party there. I mean, there can be a lot of cool things you can do to have better bond with your colleagues and stuff like that, and you can even have presenters share, and then other people can ask questions. It can be really engaging, and it doesn't have to take that long to prepare something like this, because you don't need any pages for sign up, any kind of what we call it sales funnels, right, to get people through a customer journey. You don't need that much when you have doing something in your company. It's just a lot more simple to do it. And we do, let's say, I have some people on my team. I can deliver a presentation, right? I don't have, as big of a team. We have a pretty small team, but I could still go on a Zoom call or something and share a presentation to them and have, some people come on live. That works really well. It's really, really easy to do that. Just assume, and then, you make sure you have the right plan so you can get enough people on there. But it's usually not very, very expensive. It's pretty affordable to do things like that, for sure. Hopefully that helps. If you want me, any other things you want me to clarify as we go here, I'm open to just have open Q&A later after I go through the main questions here. So what are your top tips for monetizing events when we are competing with free opportunities? Why should people pay? That's kind of what I was talking about. We are even doing some of the things we are doing. We are doing sometimes free events on the front end, but we are monetizing in the back end because we are adding some extra things. We might add extra, for example, from the sessions on a virtual event, we might create action guides, we might create workbooks, we might create extra resources that helps people implement. So it's actually a lot easier for them to take action instead of just having this kind of, information that might overwhelm some people, but then we are trying to help them kind of implement. We might provide transcripts, we might provide other things that are useful for people, and that helps a lot. So that's kind of, if you when we're doing the free on the front end, people sign up for free, so we build a big email list, but then afterwards we might have the paid upgrade. Right after they sign up, we have a paid upgrade path as well, so they can go through that. But you can also do, let's say you want to do a paid event right from the beginning. You have to realize that people are paying for convenience a lot of the times. There's an infinite amount of content online. There's so much. You go on YouTube, go on any platform, there's so much content, right? So you have to just see how you can stand out in that market. You don't have to, think that, okay, just because something is on YouTube doesn't mean you can't do something like that in a virtual event. And you can also make it more actionable. You can make it more in-depth. You can cover something that hasn't really been done before in a way. There's free events happening, but at the same time, if you can have a paid, let's say you have a paid experience for this, and offering some extra resources for people when they buy your pass for this virtual event, then people will pay for it. We have had, thousands and thousands of customers for things like that. Although in my market, where I serve online entrepreneurs primarily and online marketing, there's so much free content, but I'm still getting thousands of customers every single time I host, one of my virtual events, right? So I get, on the free front end, I might get tens of thousands of people sign up for my events. And then I have a paid path, so people upgrade to that. So if people want, in our cases, they can actually, experience it for free, but we also have this paid path, so they can actually go and upgrade right away. And then, as we said, we do a lot of email marketing for our events. That's one of the key components to get people to show up to anything you do online. You need to use email marketing. It's key. With an email list, and building that email list up, it's important. Like, yes, social media is great and all this, but email list is where it's at to market to your audience and customers, right? And that's kind of how we communicate. That's my primary form of getting people to show up. And I also get partners on board for my summits, right? And that's also how I get even more people. So I have the know, like, and trust factor with other people promoting our events, because they're speaking and they feel, okay, I want to promote this because I'm a speaker. It's similar to, now I'm a speaker here at this virtual event here. And that's kind of how you can see it. You can have different speakers on a virtual event, and then they can promote it as well to their audience, assuming they have some kind of email list and audience. So that's kind of really important when it comes to, like, why should someone pay for it? You need to position it right, and you need to make sure it is something really valuable, and people value that convenience of having all this material in one place on a specific topic. I think that's key. All right. So how can we secure and create sponsorship revenue for virtual events? Great. I mean, that's another thing. A lot of my students and clients, they ask this a lot, and there's different types of sponsorships. There's kind of a promotional sponsorship. Maybe you don't know so many people right now, like you can get on for, sponsors. So maybe your event is, maybe it's the first time you're doing something, and, maybe you don't get the sponsor to kind of pay the first time. Then you can actually do a promotional sponsorship. So they might have their logos, featured on your summit. They might get the shout out in one of the videos or something like that you do, or presentations. They might get a mention in an email. Depends kind of the form of sponsorship it is, and kind of how much value. It's kind of you need to make sure you can add value to the sponsor, and what do they want? That's always what I'm thinking. What is the number one thing this company wants, and how can we offer it to them? So if they want exposure, they want probably customers. If it's a SaaS company, right, like a subscription service or something, they probably want more recurring revenue. They want more customers for their business. So I want to see, okay, how can we offer more of that to them? And that can be by having, let's say, a free trial on the summit. So if someone let's say I bring them on even on a session on the summit. I always bring on usually my sponsors on a virtual session. So they might have a demo or something of this tool or whatever it is you guys are doing, and I bring them on there, and then they can have maybe a trial or some kind of link to check out whatever they are doing, and then I bring customers to them that way. That's usually what a sponsor wants. And if I get, let's say, a paid sponsorship, how I position it to them is that I say to them, like, I'm going to use, let's say if I'm getting £20,000 or $20,000 from this sponsor, I'm telling them that I'm going to use this money for marketing. I'm actually going to get the word out there for your brand. So basically, there's different approaches to this, but at least I think it's a lot easier to get sponsors if you say, hey, we're going to actually use the money we are getting from you guys to market this event. So you are getting benefit because you get some money, and you can actually you can make the event a lot bigger. There's differences here. If you only have sponsorship as a monetization strategy, in that case, you need to think, okay, maybe that's going to be part of your kind of revenue for the summit and stuff, but still you want to be able to grow the summit. And I think we are using a lot of sponsorship money to actually grow our virtual events, because we can use it for advertising with Facebook ads, or potentially LinkedIn ads, or whatever you want to do, right? So you can use and Google ads, all this kind of stuff. So we use it for advertising a lot of the times, and then the sponsor is getting more excited to come on board. But it's really like up to you to feature them prominently on your virtual event. You have maybe logos on the homepage for the sign up. You can have them also featured on like the pages, like where the sessions are. You can have them mentioned. You can have almost like a little promo in some of the sessions. That depends the level. We usually do 3 different levels of sponsorship for them, just to keep it simple. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen this if you're doing anything in person, but you might have let's say gold, silver, bronze, or something like that. And that's kind of how you can do, let's say, let's say 10,000, 5,000, $2,000, something like that. I mean, you can have even more. We have students who have gotten like $50,000, even up to like a 6 figures over time for sponsors. And another really cool things when it comes to sponsors for virtual events, it can last longer because you might actually turn a virtual event, more evergreen. Like you might actually relaunch that virtual event. Maybe you bring on some more speakers, and you can actually kind of similar to how podcast sponsorship work. A lot of people with podcast sponsorship, they work in quarterly basically. So you can do something similar for virtual events when it comes to getting sponsors, because you can have them pay upfront for, let's say the first 6 months, and then they have to renew that if they want to continue to be featured on the summit, assuming you will continue running the event in some way, right? I mean, that's kind of the beauty of online. You can automate your marketing too. You can actually turn something that worked into an evergreen machine. That's what we do a lot of the times for our own virtual events. Might be slightly advanced for some people, but I think this is a cool way if you want to get more out of a sponsor and also provide more value over time. All right. So that's that. All right. Can you say, okay, this kind of goes into the next thing here. This was, maybe I covered this a little bit. So can you suggest some creative options we can offer sponsors for virtual events? I mean, that actually one thing I wanted to mention around this, I see some people now, my clients and students, they're using, I'm sure maybe you have done some of this for your in-person events. You've seen like these virtual booths and stuff like that. You can do the same thing online. And basically what you want to do is to have a page on your website where you feature the sponsors. Maybe you have 5 sponsors, 10 sponsors, whatever it is. You put them on a page basically for that virtual event. Like when people, are signed up, they go and watch sessions and stuff, but you still have like a link to a page there where they can actually check out the sponsors. You have links to them and people can click through for each sponsor, and they go into like a booth, kind of like you design it in a way. So you talk to the sponsor before as you get them on board, but then you will actually tell them, okay, how can we make this really valuable for you? How can we make this extremely valuable? And what you can do then is to see, maybe you can have some kind of sign up for that particular company, like depending on what they want. A lot of people in my industry, they want to get like either build their email list, they want to maybe get more trials for the software, whatever it is. But whatever it is for you, you can do the same thing. So you have these, kind of, virtual booths basically where you can bring sponsors in, and that's one of the things I do like from an in-person event, that you can actually bring more online. And I've seen it work really well, and sponsors are getting great ROI from this, which is key, right? If you want a returning sponsor, you got to make sure you deliver value to that sponsor too. And that's how you can also get, higher, more money over time from this too. So let's see. Okay, cool. Can you provide some more details on what you would include in a gold, silver, and bronze different? Okay, for example, bronze sponsorship, maybe the lowest. That's a great question there coming from Hannah there. So basically, for bronze sponsorship, I would typically put it. Maybe they get the logos featured on your event, because that's kind of the lowest form, I would say. A silver one, maybe they can get also maybe a mention, potentially in an email, like they can get some kind of mention. Then maybe they get some more features around your summit, right? I mean, or your event, like it depends a little bit where you put them. And then maybe a gold type of sponsorship, then they get even more exposures. They can maybe more emails, maybe they get a session on your event where you can like talk more about that company. So that there's different things there. It's like really the creativity is endless. Like I don't know your particular market. We might have some questions here in the open Q&A later, but it kind of depends a little bit what your sponsors might value, what you put there. But in general, you're gonna see like a bronze, you don't have as much exposure. You just kind of let them be seen on your summit in a way, but you might not mention them as much. Then a silver, you mention them a little bit more. And then a gold, or the highest level of sponsorship, you might mention them a lot more. Like especially the best thing I found is if I bring them on for a session on the event itself and have some kind of demo. That usually brings quite a lot of customers for a sponsor, and that has worked great for me in terms of even promotional sponsors. I'm getting great commissions from different sponsors because of this, and also paid sponsors, right? And then you can also, as I said, mention them in your email marketing when you're promoting the event, when you're actually sending people links to go and watch the sessions for that day. So let's say your event is doesn't have to be can be a one-day event, can be a few days, right? So that's also another thing. So you can actually have that over like 5 days, 7 days sometimes, like a more of a, because online you don't want to have like a packed day with like, let's say 10 sessions per day. That's not gonna be the best experience. I just wanted to talk about that briefly. You want to have maybe a fewer sessions, unless it's one day. You can have, you know, maybe then you can do it live even. But like if you have a few days, you want to make sure you don't have too many sessions every day. That's going to be too much for people to just consume in an online setting, in most cases at least. So we tend to do anywhere from, you know, 3 to, let's say, max 7 sessions per day, depending on how many you have on an event. But we don't do too many, like, you know, like in an online, like even 7 is kind of a lot. So like 4, we should try to stick to 4 to 5, depending on how many speakers you have and stuff like that, and how many days your event is. So that's also something to keep in mind, and then you can do different cool things throughout this experience. All right, so there's a lot of different virtual event software platforms out there. What platforms do you recommend and why? Like, as I said, if you want to do something internal to your company, I think then like a video conferencing software like Zoom, that can work well. If you want to do something more in higher quality, I mean, there's different things. Like if you want to actually get an event that you have other people to sign up for, like you actually use to grow your business and stuff like that, then you want to make sure you have some pages for signing up. So then there's so many different tools for this. There's like with WordPress, you know, the Thrive Architect, there's ClickFunnels, there's all these different things. I don't know what you guys typically use, but there's so many things for designing that kind of experience, like the pages. You need to have different sign up pages and sales pages and stuff like that. You design for this. You obviously take, you know, the email addresses to collect that, and then to collect payments and stuff. So there's different things there. So if you're doing that to grow your business, there's more steps involved to kind of set all of that up. But then in terms of like doing the actual events, there are some platforms out there that are coming up. I've seen a platform called Hop. I think it's called Hopin, Hopin. There's kind of something like we are using now with Bright Talk. There's different platforms out there, to be honest. I use a lot Ecamm Live, or something like, I mean, even like a lot of our students using something simple like StreamYard, or there's for PC, there's vMix. Ecamm Live is only for Mac. So that's how we stream the session. If you want to do very high definition stuff, you know, for example, bring in, you know, a more professional camera and stuff, then you want to make sure you use a proper live streaming software, because that's usually the platforms who can provide that. And then you can, there's pros and cons with everything, because some of these kind of more event platforms, you have the chat built in, similar to how this platform is here. And there's pros and cons with everything. Depends a little bit how you want to structure it. For when we use, you know, Ecamm Live, for example, which I like a lot, I use it a lot in my business. We might set up a stream to YouTube, and then we embed YouTube on a page with a chat. So there's different ways to do this, and there's so many options out there today. It's like more about you kind of seeing kind of what type of event you're hosting and what makes sense to you in terms of technology and kind of the resources you want to put into it. I'm sure there's a ton. There's so many. I mean, I just mentioned a few here, but there's dozens and dozens of more, probably hundreds of more, but there's too many to mention here in terms of how you can set it up. But it depends a little bit if you want to have a sales funnel and stuff for this. As I said, we are using more online marketing tools. You want to make sure you have email marketing and stuff involved for this. So we are using a lot of like kind of what we use in our online business, online marketing. I know you're coming from a different background here. So there's a lot of different tools that are kind of cater to this. Like now, with a lot of event professionals you cannot do your in-person stuff anymore. So there's basically companies have come up and they're offering that. I mean, even Zoom can work. That's the simplest solution out there to just do something. You can even use Zoom webinars for this, where you have an audience come on there. That's a very easy way to do this. I mean, it's simple. It's maybe not the highest quality you can get with some other ones, but it's a very simple way of doing it. All right. Should you pick a platform before designing a virtual event? I mean, it's good to be aware of it. I think it's good to be aware of what you're going to use. But I think the most important thing is that you really are clear on the topic, and kind of, so make sure, like also another thing for virtual events that are even more important than probably for kind of in-person is that you go niche. Like I say to my students and clients sometimes, like niche, narrow down your niche until it hurts, basically. Like you need to go very specific, like much more specific than you do in person. Like, because in person you might be the only conference who's doing it, or you might own that already. But online there might be other players, right? And you want to make sure you can own a specific topic, and that will help you a lot more. But if they have, let's say you haven't seen any events in your industry, then it's a good opportunity, but still not going like crazy broad and cover everything. You want to make sure you hone in on something specific so you can attract your ideal customers, ideal audience to that virtual event. That's very important there. And then you can get into, okay, get the platform and all this. But it's more like define the sessions. Maybe if you have a few days for the virtual event, think about different themes to have each day. So they make sense for people, right? So they go through. You can also have different tracks on a virtual event. So you have, maybe have different things you want to cover, right? And you have tracks for people. So you can even segment people, which we talk a lot about, like how you can segment your customers and have a better experience for them. So you can have different tracks, even if you cover different things on your virtual event that will appeal to different types of people. Maybe you have, fitness professionals, and then you have something different. I mean, there might be different ways to actually segment the audience there on the event. That's a little more advanced, but I think you can just kind of think how you can do this. Maybe you do stuff like that already on an in-person event setting, how you might have different tracks for people and stuff like that. That can actually work pretty well online too. It's just a matter of like seeing how you do that with your kind of email marketing. You can segment when they sign up to something, when they pay for something. You can have like a little drop down and say, okay, are you, and like, what are you interested in? Basically, you can have a simple question and then just have a few things, and you might, feature sessions related to what they're interested in a little bit more. That can be one way to improve that experience. But again, virtual event platform, I think it's mostly about the strategy you use. The virtual event platform doesn't matter as much as some people think in terms of how to host it. There's definitely some good ones, some bad ones. We keep it pretty simple for ourselves, as I mentioned. I like to keep it with pretty high quality, the sessions I do these days. So as I said, I use Ecamm Live, but if there's other platforms, Zoom, and there's Bright Talk, there's so many out there like that you can do. Hopin I saw recently come up, and seems pretty good. It's more expensive, but it depends. If you're coming from a bigger company, I guess they will have the funds to just invest in that. Just my audience that I normally serve, they usually don't use these typical like virtual kind of event platforms and stuff as much as you don't need for what the purposes we are doing. We are doing like, we have some people in our industry that are doing like hundreds, thousands of email subscribers and millions of dollars in sales for the summits, and we are not using any fancy like virtual event platforms. But again, that's kind of in our typical industry. If you want to have all these different features that are more like models from the in-person world, then you might want to check out something like Hopin or maybe Bright Talk or something like that, which has also built-in chat functionality and stuff in the platform. All right. Let's see here. Let me see the next one here. How can we communicate our key messages in an experimental way and not lose the attention of our attendees? It's kind of a little bit what I've been talking about today, like in terms of like making it more fun for people, like thinking about not like that you need to do exactly this, but you can do kind of more Netflix style, like more story, like some storytelling, like so you have a story arc through your summit, like so people are interested. So it's more fun to attend your virtual event sessions. Like if you have interviews or if you have presentation, that doesn't matter. You can still make it interesting. Maybe you do some kind of giveaways. Maybe you do some kind of, you have some kind of thing at the end of the sessions that you're doing. Maybe you're like engaging your attendees, making it interesting. But another thing, I think there's a question about this. You're not going to get exactly 100% of people to stick around for a virtual event, like every single session or every single moment of the virtual event. That's just going to happen. Like in person, they are stuck in a room, right? Typically, and they can't really leave. It would be pretty awkward, but you can't do stuff like that online. So you need to kind of have some different things and like make sure your email marketing is on point. So you get people to show up to the sessions. Make sure if you're doing some sponsors, make it fun for people. You can do some different things. There may be giveaways with the sponsors, maybe some some different contests. There's kind of cool things you can do around that. Like you have like I saw on one of my students, he was doing like a spinning wheel for the sponsor, and like depending on what I think they basically set it up. There might be a tool for it or or they custom developed that, but they had like a wheel for the sponsor on that virtual booth. And they basically, when you click that and sign up for the list, you can spin that wheel and then you can get some kind of gift from the sponsor, which was really cool. And people really enjoyed that experience. So that's always thing you can do there to experiment. But just keep in mind, every single component from an in-person conference or in-person event, you're not gonna be able to bring every single thing online. And it's, good. This is pros and cons with everything. I think the online event that we are talking about today, you can get unlimited attendees. Like that's, as long as people sign up for it, you can get unlimited attendees, unlimited customers for this. That's kind of the benefit of doing this. So you might have some trade-offs that you can't do, but I think the benefits in some ways outweighs that. Like it costs a lot less to put together an in-person conference. They're cost effective, and there's so many other things with lead generations, with sales, you can get more customers for this. So yeah, that's some things around this. Let's see here. So let's see if I covered this. All right. So how can you ensure other attendees? How can you offer attendees the best experience online? It's just a matter of like having, like, as I said, you can up the quality for certain things. Like if you want to make sure you have a good, decent video quality for your events. I do think it's great to connect with someone in person, or like you can see me now, right? But I think that's the closest you can get other than in-person, like meetings and stuff, that you can actually see the person. I think that's powerful. Even if you're having a presentation, you can consider that you can share slides and stuff on a virtual event for sure, but then you can possibly switch between you coming on and then slides. Maybe you have a speaker on there, so you can make it more engaging like that. So it's like more interesting for people to follow along, and they don't see maybe like a slide all the time. And if you do have slides, make sure you kind of keep moving a little bit faster, not to stay on the same slide all the time, for example. So that's one of the ways. And this makes sure things work, like testing your technology, this kind of thing. Maybe if you want to have some chat, make sure you answer questions from people. Yeah, stuff like this. People value that. People value the connection. I think now more than ever, personal connection works so well. Like for some of my own promotions and summits, we do a lot of, like, for example, some live Q&As. You might bring on some speakers. This is simple things. You can get thousands of people show up depending on how many you have. Like I just helped a student in the tennis industry. And he was basically, now because everyone they're stuck at home, he had like over 13,000 people sign up to this virtual event. And then he had some of the live sessions he did. He had a mix between pre-recorded sessions and live sessions. So you don't even need to do every single thing live, because that can be stressful a little bit, with the technology and everything working. But he did some pre-recorded things. He even had some of his speakers send in presentations to him that he featured on the summit. That might be like a 30-minute to 45-minute session or something like that. And then what he did as well, he was doing every single day of the summit, which was, I think, was a 5 to 6 day summit, what he hosted. He basically did live sessions too. So he engaged with the audience, and he loved that. He did reviews. He did different things. Like whatever niche you're in or whatever market you're in, you can do certain things that are valuable to them. In his case, he was in the tennis industry. So he did volley reviews with, a multiple Grand Slam champion. He did a lot of cool things that people value. So if you have speakers like this coming on for your virtual event that are pretty well known in your industry, you can bring them on for like live sessions, like Q&As, reviews, whatever that's going to be, to add more value to your attendees. And they will love that. Like that's kind of what's working. I see that's working extremely well now, and it's going to continue to work moving forward. It's not going anywhere. Let's see. Let's continue. I'm just checking here in the chat a little bit if something came in. So let's continue here. So there's some great questions. Let's see. How do you take into account time zones to make virtual events work successfully for global delegates or attendees? Yeah, great question. I think I will keep that one pretty short, because when you're hosting something, you're gonna think about the primary audience, where especially when you're doing it live, right? You need to think about where's your primary audience. If that's in the UK, you're gonna use probably UK time zone. If that's in the US, if most of your audience is in the UK or in the US, you're gonna keep probably Eastern time zone or something like that. That's what I do. It's like there's no way around this. There's always someone who's not gonna be able to, maybe if you do live sessions, maybe that's not gonna be working the best for some of them. But the benefit of a virtual event is that even if someone is in Australia or wherever they are in the world, right? They can attend, they can still check out, because you might have, let's say, as I said before, you can have it available. If it's a free event, you can have it available for 24 to 48 hours, kind of the free session, and then it locks into the premium pass experience for the upgrades. If it's a paid event, well, that doesn't matter as much, because you have it recorded. So you're gonna have it in a members area for people who bought, because if someone buys something online, you need to provide the access. That says itself. What happens with an in-person conference, sometimes a lot of people, they provide recordings of an in-person conference, but let's say you are oversleeping, and someone is oversleeping, they can't attend that session. They're probably not, they're not gonna get a refund or something for that. They're just gonna miss that. But in an online setting, they can attend that because it's recorded. You're gonna provide the access to whatever they purchase, whatever they sign up for. So it can actually work for anyone out there, like to attend something like this, which is what I mean. Like, you can get so many more people sign up for a virtual event as well. So yeah, it's just pick the time zone that is best for your attendees, essentially. Or if you have, maybe you have a company, maybe you do it in your own time zone, but always think about where the most people are. I think that's usually the best in terms of getting people to show up and stuff like that. But you have to kind of keep that in mind for if you're in a company and you're in UK, you might not want to do it too late in the evenings and stuff like that. But it just keep in mind, I always do it in Eastern time zone myself, because most of my audience, they are based in the United States. So I always do it usually Eastern time zone. So I make sessions go live, maybe starting 9 a.m. in the morning or something like that, or 8 a.m. And then I do it like this, basically. That works well. All right, the next one. So when you convert a live in-person session into a virtual session, what are the mistakes to avoid if you want to keep your online audience during the entire session? And yeah, there's different things I can share here. The only thing is, I want you to keep in mind, you will not keep an audience there for the entire session. Some people will attend the entire session for sure, but you will not have them, stay there. If it's like an hour session, you will not have every single person stay online. There's webinars and stuff. No one is staying for an entire session, like the entire audience. You will have a percentage of drop off. But what you can do, as I said before, you can make it more engaging. You can, maybe have some Q&A at the end. You can also maybe have a bonus for people who stick around till the end. So you might have a gift for people, anyone who sticks around till the very end. Let's say it's a 45-minute session. You might give a little free gift that they can sign up for, or that you share, maybe a checklist, whatever it is. So you can have something like that you give away towards them. And that's a thing a lot of people in my industry, they use for webinars and stuff, for get them to stay longer. It's still not 100% of people who do that, like who will stick around, but at least that works. And then in terms of presentation, just making it, flow. Like if you have, what I say a lot, if you do have, let's say a speaker has a signature talk, or like a great talk from, that they usually deliver in person, and that works really well, you can bring the same thing online pretty much, maybe with some tweaks here and there. And you can kind of switch between, I guess, if you have slides, switch between slides and go back to you, if that's possible with your technology you're using. And in most, you can do stuff like that. And that's kind of how you can keep it flowing, and also engage. If you have a live session, like check in on maybe the chat and what's going on a little bit, so you can see what's going on there with the audience. If you want to take questions, and towards the end you can do more of that, then that's usually how you can get more of the attention from people, and not bore them or something like that with what you might be sharing. But usually if it's great content, people stick around. But you will not get 100% of people. It's not just, they're not locked in a room like in an in-person conference. That's not what's going on online. So hopefully that helps. All right, so let's keep going here with the next question. We have a few more, and then we have open Q&A. So how do you create and keep, let's see, that might have covered. Sorry, that one I covered. So with the restart of global travel expected from June 2020, when do you think the current interest into virtual will flip back into real meetings? That's that's a valid thing. But I do think, like, because of everything going on now, people are going to be a lot more careful to just rely on in-person. I think in-person is fantastic. Like what, it can bring certain things you can't necessarily get online, with like people really connecting, forming deep relationships. I think that is a little bit harder to cultivate in an online setting, although you can do some stuff with communities, and there's Facebook groups, there's different forums, you can have certain things like that. But I do think virtual events will continue to rise. It's really nothing new. It's just now it's coming a lot more into it, because event professionals and others, they kind of need to find another way to, to make a living and host these virtual events more. And I think now we see that governments can take it away any moment. Like governments can shut things down, which hasn't really happened, at least in my lifetime. Might have been a long time ago since anything like this happened. I can't remember anything like that in history when we've had, a ban for this long for something like that. So I do think like it's beneficial to, learn how to do virtual events and also have both. So you can always like combine it. I think a combination of the two is great when you can continue hosting virtual events, but at the same time, when you're allowed to start hosting bigger in-person conferences, of course you're gonna do that. But then you have learned another skill that you can actually keep hosting these virtual events, and that's how you're gonna stand out in your market and have something maybe some other people they don't know how to do. So I think that's gonna continue. It's just a matter of for you to decide, to not just rely on one form, like in-person events, and actually also doing the virtual style of events that I've been talking about here today. All right, so what will the virtual event industry look like in 2021 next year, right? Well, they're gonna continue to evolve. I think I've been doing this since 2014 and helped clients since 2015. So I've seen a lot during this time. And what I can say is like we have, like our events, what we are doing get better and better. It's because we evolve. We, add different things to our events to make them better. And I think for, moving forward, I think it's going to continue with like keeping things, starting pretty simple in a way. And like, if you want to have like this personal connection, as I've talked about, I think it's great to bring in an audience, especially if you're doing it live, or, maybe you have a mix of pre-recorded and some live. So you make sure that your audience can connect with you and some of your speakers. I mean, in some ways, in an in-person conference, yes, you can connect depending on how big it is, but still online is pretty cool to be able to see kind of a chat between the two. It's like can still form a pretty deep connection, and that can help you, make more sales for your company, can help you build a bigger audience. There's so many benefits of this. As I said, you can have, some of the speakers sharing more your summits and stuff like that with sponsors. They're going to be more aware of virtual events. So I can see that evolving too. So maybe you can get even bigger sponsors for the future. I think because we have seen like, big multi-5-figure sponsorships, some people getting up to 6 figures from sponsors for virtual events. And that's because they position it correctly, similar to how I've shared before. Like you want to make sure the sponsor can get exposure and stuff like that from what you're doing. So what we are doing now with events will continue to work next year, but then, it's going to evolve over time. So there's probably new platforms popping up. There's probably some new strategies here and there, but overall, it's kind of what I've seen is we have evolved small things every single year, like since I started, and it continues to work. Like now, as I said, personal connection is big. So if you can bring them on, I think that will be really powerful for you and in an online virtual setting. And you can do, I've seen like cooking shows. I've seen anything done online. We have people in like harp music and like guitar playing and all these kind of things. They're doing kind of summits in B2B. We have all these kind of industries. They're doing events and they're sharing with people and stuff like that. It's just a valuable way of sharing content. And as I said, you can also do it in an internal setting in your company, which is really, really simple to do. And it's more about kind of evolving over time and seeing what your attendees and the people you get on, how they respond to what you're sharing. So that's basically it for the questions for today here. So we have, I guess we have open Q&A now. So hopefully that was valuable. Maybe some things are, because I'm bringing a lot of my experience from the online marketing world. So maybe some of these things are new to you. Maybe some are kind of what you have done before. But either way, I'm open to taking some questions now from you. All right, cool. So I do see some stuff coming in here. Let's see. Let's see here. All right, so let me, I'm just checking my chat here on the end. Okay, so can you do? All right, cool. So this is from Hannah here. So what kind of upgrades and services do you offer in a paid path for attendees? That's kind of what I share. So let's say you're doing a free event upfront. Like, so people sign up for it, you grow your email list quickly. That will be basically getting access to the sessions on your summit. But you will have still urgency there. So people feel that, okay, if they want everything for lifetime access in a convenience, in a membership area, which is password protected online, then they can upgrade. And what you can offer in addition to maybe recordings and maybe audios and stuff like that of these sessions can be, maybe they can be behind the scenes sessions with some of the speakers. It can be extra sessions actually, where you go deeper with some speakers. Maybe you share some behind the scenes with them in some ways of what's working for them, whatever niche you're in. It's hard to exactly say what you're gonna do, but like it can be behind the scenes, like a little bit more in depth than the first session, for example. That can be one idea. Another thing can be adding transcripts, because some people might wanna have access to this. It can be adding action guides, taking whatever you're doing with the video sessions and taking and designing action guides for this, so you have an action plan for people to implement. Can be notes for all the sessions, can be a lot of different things like this. It can be like a private Q&As with you, even if you have a great authority in your market and people trust you and stuff like that. Can be Q&A, can be anything like that you add extra that they don't get with let's say the free one. So that's also how you can think about kind of, if you're only hosting like a paid event, you can also think about things like this, right? Like how can we make it extra valuable? So it's more than just the content, they're actually getting more of a way to implement. And in terms of price points, I think it can be valuable to talk about. If you're selling something in-person event, I mean, some are cheaper, some are more expensive. There might be some in the $1,000+ or pounds, right? For virtual events, typically, like depending on the industry you're in, my goal is to get basically people in when I'm hosting something like this. I have obviously a full sales funnel. I have other more expensive products. We are selling, in the thousands and thousands. I mean, the most expensive program I think I've sold is over $10,000, right? So I have many things in my funnel. So I keep my summits usually $67 to $97. So it's free to sign up. So I keep them very, very inexpensive, but I get thousands of people buy them. Like that's kind of the benefit of doing it like this. But you need still the traffic to drive to your pages and all that. But then what you can do as well is to basically have people sign up for this experience, and then you can get more people to basically experience what you're doing with this. I mean, in my case, as I said, I have it more cheaper, so I have a lot of people sign up. You might want to keep it a little bit higher. If you're serving corporate, if you're serving B2B, you can keep a price point of a few $100s, like $297 to $500 or so, because that's a great way to experience your brand. You most likely, if you're doing this for a company or something, you probably have something beyond the event. In at least that's what I would recommend. So you have more expensive things to offer at some point, to these people. Maybe there's something you want to promote at some point, and that's kind of how we design our virtual event experiences. So there's different price points. You can keep it really low, and then you do it in the entry point of the customer journey and people experiencing your brand and business. Then you can also do it a little bit higher price point. But I have not seen like virtual events like costing in the thousands or something like that. If you do it very intimate, like private workshop mastermind, then you can charge more. But I think for like, if you're going for more volume, you're gonna keep the price a little bit lower, and that's usually what works well. All right. Do you have any backup plans in case of connection and network issues? Yeah, there's always the case. Just make sure you have the best upload speed possible. If you're doing anything with, live and stuff like that, that's always good. But yeah, if you have issues, there's not too much. You can have a backup internet provider, I guess, or like if the tool goes down and stuff like that, then yes, you need to have another solution so you can quickly switch to. I would recommend that. So let's say you're starting with Zoom goes down, then you might switch to another platform that you can also host it and quickly share a link to people to get in there. That's what I would do in that case. But that's also why you can combine recorded sessions with live sessions. That's an easier way to do it. Again, if you want to keep everything live, it's fine, but you can. It's with a virtual event, there's nothing wrong with also having some recorded sessions actually at times, and you can give access to that to people like every day. Like our students do that a lot. They have a mix between recorded and live because they don't want the stress of doing everything live. That's just how my students do it. Some people do it all of them live, which it's a little bit more with the planning and getting everyone to show up and stuff like this. But yeah, then you definitely want to have a backup plan for like the software you might use for recording a session. You can also have two internet providers. There's different things you can do. I rarely have issues like myself, but yeah, it can happen depending on where you are in the world and stuff and softwares, but I rarely have issues. I've done it for a long time and it's been working pretty well. All right. What's the social network that helps you best promote or give visibility to the event or speech online? Social networks are interesting. I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, for us, like Facebook is great. We do Facebook ads and stuff. I want to say this when it comes to social media. Like if someone has a big following, like if you don't have a following, you're gonna hear crickets on social media. You're not gonna just post something randomly and expect like to see, hundreds and hundreds of people sign up for this or pay for, the event. That's not gonna happen. Social media has a very low click-through rate in general. But again, if you do paid advertising, you can target it better. You can do retargeting, you can do cold traffic, and do different things with Facebook ads. There's LinkedIn ads too, is more expensive, but for the right, if you're serving a market that might hang out there, then that could be a useful thing for you. Like LinkedIn is also, I mean, there's social network, right? There's Facebook, there's kind of YouTube in a way, like, but I think YouTube is more for search. You can do YouTube ads too. That's another thing to grow if you don't have a platform there. But in most cases, for us to promote our events, we do it a lot of the times through email marketing. We're getting partners like our sponsors, like our speakers, and they share it with their audience because they are speaking at the event. We can also give them, let's say they make a sale, then we give them affiliate commission. So basically how it works is you don't pay anything up front to them. I mean, you might pay, like in some cases you can pay to a speaker, but here's the thing, like for a lot of our events we have hosted, we have never paid a speaker, which is really interesting. So I didn't mention this before, but it's very rare we pay speakers, and a lot of my students, they don't, because they're getting exposure from this. So depending on the industry you're in, you might not have to pay speakers, like because if you offer enough value, enough exposure, that can be enough. And it's just like basically they're coming on for like a 45-minute session or like an hour session. It's not like they're gonna share their entire knowledge like in 1 hour. It's impossible. Like any expert, they can share a lot more than that. So in some cases, you might not even have to pay. At the very least, if you are going to pay, it might not cost as much as it would in person, right? Depending on the industry, like some people are more like professional speakers. They see it a little bit differently maybe. But a lot of the times, like how you can position it is like they are basically getting exposure like a podcast, but even in some cases more exposure than a podcast because people are tuned in to this session here. I think there's so many benefits of just kind of getting speakers on board, getting them to promote your summit, and maybe doing some Facebook ads or different advertising. That's more effective than social networks. If you have a big audience on social media, it depends where your audience are hanging out. Like I cannot answer, like Facebook is great for us. Instagram is pretty good as well, like for ads and stuff. There's YouTube. Like if you have videos and stuff, that can also be useful for, eventually. It's more like a long-term play with YouTube, to be honest, but they have ads, they have other things. LinkedIn platform is pretty useful for certain industries too. So you need to know where your audience is hanging out and start building a following there. I think that's the main thing. But the most important thing, if I leave you with anything, to do anything online, is to build up an email list, to be honest. You can't really, it's very difficult to succeed online without an email list. Even if you're going to sell tickets to your in-person conferences, you want to have an email list too, because you're going to get more people to sign up. So, and building a relationship with that email list is really important. And the virtual event helps with that because that's the starting point, right? A lot of people experience you for the first time. All right. Let's see here. For an online event of a few thousand participants, how do you increase connections between online attendees? How to not feel alone behind a computer? Great question. So that's kind of the you can have chat functionality. You can have kind of you can potentially have a Facebook group or some kind of forum where you can connect. That could be good. You can have a Slack channel even. If it's a few thousand, someone is gonna moderate it, but that could work. I have never done with Slack channel myself because I wouldn't like to have all these notifications. But that's a pretty personal way of connecting as well. Like I prefer Facebook groups for myself. I do like that because it's still a pretty good experience. But again, you're not gonna have, even if you do have thousands of attendees, not every single, like that's kind of one of the benefits of virtual too, is that you don't, like every single attendee, they don't want to be seen. They want to be behind their computer, right? But you need to give that option. Let's say, I can give you an example so you know what I mean. Let's say you have a health issue and you're attending an event in the health space. Would you like everyone to know that you're attending this conference? maybe you want to ask a question. That's an option you have to maybe ask a question. In that case, as an attendee to one of the speakers, and then you will be seen. But if you have some kind of health issue or something and attending a health summit or a health virtual event, then you probably maybe you want to be behind the computer. Maybe you just want to learn, right? You don't want to let everyone know that you have some kind of thing that you are a little bit ashamed of, or maybe you don't want to share it with everyone. So I think that's one of the benefits. Like if you go into an in-person conference, you're making an active choice to be there. So that's, you are making the choice as an attendee to go to that conference, and then you are going to be seen. You are going to be there. You are going to connect, if you're doing things right. But online, a lot of people, they don't want that. They don't want to always show up. Like some of my people who have bought from me, they have never commented on anything I do, but they're still like they're behind, and they're coming in and they're buying my products, right? So you don't have to feel that every single person need to engage, but you want to have engagement, of course. And that's how you can add live chat. You can add, maybe a forum, Facebook group. You can add some interaction with live sessions where people can ask questions and stuff like that. There's probably other tools as well. I mean, there's nothing really like, you can have probably something like, something I would do is a forum if you want to have a private place, or a Slack channel, or a Facebook group. That's probably the ones I would do. There might be other tools for it. I don't use any of that myself for like, there's like Mighty Networks. Mighty Networks is good for like forums and stuff. I believe there's Slack if you want to keep it really simple. As I said, the Facebook groups I do. I don't know, LinkedIn, I don't know if you can create communities there anymore. Used to, at least. But yeah, I think just kind of knowing where your audience hang out, and then creating some kind of community there where you have the discussion. So if you want to have discussion after a session, maybe you have a link. That's how I would do it. So I have a link out to my Facebook group, or maybe I have a comments or some kind of thing where I'm hosting these sessions. That can be a forum as well, where people have a discussion and maybe they can connect there. Maybe you have some kind of matchmaking in a way, but that takes a little more work in an online event setting, especially if you have thousands and thousands of people sign up for it. It's just a little more difficult, some of these things. All right. Last question. What are the KPIs for a free virtual event? All right. Yeah, that's a good question. Like in terms of like what you need to look at is like, if you're doing a virtual event to grow your audience, I'm not talking internal now. I think you need to look at the conversion rate for your landing page, the registration page for the event. That's one thing to look at for sure. You need to look at your conversion. Like if it's so you do it free, but the next step in the funnel, so you have a free, the first page is a free registration page for that event. So it happens between this and this date. You have the speakers featured there. You have a great headline and all this kind of stuff, right? That's what it goes on the landing page. You want to make sure that converts anywhere like above 40%. You want to make sure that converts. A lot of our pages, they convert anywhere from 50 to 70%, like even higher. I had the students converting up to 80% there. You can also have a kind of a free kind of PDF playbook with some tips from speakers and stuff that you give away, when they sign up, so they get a free gift right away. That can also increase conversion. And then the next step, you want to also track the from free to paid upgrade conversion. So if you can get, in our cases, we get a lot of the times like anywhere from like 6 to 10%. We have students getting 20 to 30% there. But I would say if you can get like 3 to 6% there, it's amazing. Like that's still really, really good. If you get above 6%, that's like incredible. That's really good from a free. Let's say you get a few thousand people sign up for it, sign up for a free event, and you have a few hundred upgrades. I mean, that's amazing. That's a lot, like to get for in this way. You would never get, in most cases, you would struggle really badly to get that from a paid event up front, like from a paid virtual event. So I think you can get more customers this way. So you want to track the registration page. You want to track the conversion from free to paid. You want to track maybe some of your sponsors, like how they are performing. You want to track what the speakers are doing. And then what I also track is how the summit audience, the virtual event audience, how they are converting afterwards, right? So I always have other things that I can offer them. Maybe I promote other products that I make a commission on. It can be my own products. I have a program called Virtual Summit Mastery where we teach you exactly how to create wildly successful virtual events and stuff like that. So I have that with templates and stuff. So I might sell that to people afterwards, and I track how many of these people might convert to our backend offers. So there's many like different things I kind of review after I've done this in terms of like KPIs and what to look at. But we have been very successful with doing like free events up front. But it's a little bit of preference, like depending on your objective. Like, do you want to turn more of your existing audience? Maybe you already have a big audience and you want to do paid events to convert them into paying customers. Maybe you start with a paid event, right? And you go deeper on a specific topic. There's many ways to do that successfully, for sure. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other questions here that we can cover. Another thing I also around this, I actually track a lot of the speakers. So like if you're doing an event virtually, I might survey the audience as well, which speakers they enjoy and stuff like that, because I want to make sure I can maybe bring someone back if they did really well, especially if they also maybe promoted the event and stuff like that. Then I might bring them back on for a round 2 or for like Q&As or for another event in the future. So I do see how the attendees, how they respond to certain speakers and stuff like that as well. And there's a ton of different things, but that's a few things I think you should look at if you're hosting like free events, especially. All right, perfect. I mean, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I did see a lot of stuff coming in here. Hope you found some value from this. I know it's a little different than maybe some of you like especially if you're coming from a professional event background and bringing everything online. But I think if you can implement just some of these tips I've shared today, you'll definitely be more successful with your virtual events. And yeah, let me know what you think. You can find all about me at navidmoazzez.com. That's my personal website. And we have a program, as I said, called Virtual Summit Mastery as well. So just reach out to me if you have any questions. And yeah, I really enjoyed being on here. Thanks so much. Ciao.